Welcome to Silicon Valley Impact, where business insight meets startup innovation. And now your hosts, Brian Sparks and the ever-lovely Lisa Helfrich.
And the crowd goes wild. I love it. Brian,
yes, sir. Yes.
You're bringing your A game with that intro. I love it. It's getting really good.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
I love it.
I mean, the crowd seems to really be responding to that.
That's what matters, the response.
I really appreciate that about them. They're so warm and welcoming.
They're very rocking.
I got everybody on the screen here, too, right now. I know that, they're still going. Shh, everybody. Come on, seriously.
All right, everybody, settle down. Welcome to Silicon Valley Impact on Pirate Cat Radio, KPCR 92.9 FM.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're back. You weren't here last.
Winner of that is going to be on our show next week. So looking forward to showing Silicon Valley some Canadian talent.
Yes, there's talent all over the world. And let me tell everybody who's listening all over the world, San Francisco and Los Gatos are probably about 40 miles, but it's like literally going to the East Coast. I mean, it's a trek, but I'm so happy that you're here. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. I feel like I was blushing when you said that. But no, it's so amazing to be here. This is such a change of pace. And yeah, certainly San Francisco to Los Gatos is like a different world. But it was nice to get out of the city and see some beautiful greenery and the water and nice drive. So thanks for having me.
It's great. And so our audience gets a little feel about your background. Tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Transform HR.
Sounds good. So I like to describe myself as a connector and a bridge builder. So careers certainly are never a straight line. Mine is absolutely follows that case. So it's been lots of different curves and turns. Early in my career, I was a general manager, business development, business strategy, product management, business operations. And then I discovered this interesting world of community and events back in 2016. So currently I am the GM and co-founder of Transform Media. Transform started out as HR Transform. It's a community that's built to bring together an ecosystem community of change agents thinking about the now and next of work and the health and well-being of global workforces. So we have an annual conference that we host in Las Vegas, but now we are much more. So really a media business, kind of building a community to help support leaders throughout the year, to inspire learning, to create connections, to drive innovation. And it's a thrill. It's so awesome to be here.
I love that position. I up to this point, I thought, it was this amazing conference that you yearly that focuses on HR and everything that goes into talent acquisition and building out the heart of a company. But hearing this new position, not new position, what's new to me about media, I definitely want to dive into that. But I want to say hi to Damian and Mona. Damian, thanks for making the trek out here with Samara. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself and some bit about your background.
Well, thank you for having me down here. My name is Damian Scott. I am currently a co-founder of an email productivity startup called Fynch. Before that, I was the CCO and EVP of retail media at a company called Giant Eagle, which is a medium-sized regional grocer out in the Midwest.
Nice, nice. And
Cool.
tell us a little bit about your mission with Finch.
One of the things that why I started Finch, and this is relatively new. I mean, this is April of this year. When I was at Giant Eagle running retail media, we had about 300 employees in my department. And one of the hardest things the three things that were really difficult for my job was, first one was email, second one was meeting, and the third then was the job. And so what I found is that I spent so much time in email that it became more of a hamper to my third. The most important thing I should be focused on was the job itself. And so with Finch, we're trying to figure out how to leverage AI, like, this yet another AI startup, but it's really, at the end of the day, how do we get out of the email and make it more productive? With email, one of the things that I've spent a lot of time with my partners is looking at there's 5 aspects to email for us, right? There's how to leverage AI with scheduling, summarization of email, automation of email through workflows, the personalization of those emails. A lot of AIs will say, I'm going to capture your tone and your style. And the last one is triage. So we're trying to focus on the last 2. How do we take email to triage it to a point where understanding where that email should go in regards to your priority list? Because someone can flag something as priority on their side, but it's not priority for you. And so Finch is taking those 5 aspects of email productivity and try to leverage AI. And so we've been experimenting with, we have a consulting firm as well under Finch that we've been leveraging AI and saying, how do we make it work and beyond just a chatbot?
Oh, I love it. Okay, so we'll dive into that and what your hurdles have been up to this point, kind of where you're at and what you hope to see, your vision for your company and your customer's biggest pain point, what you've discovered at this point. Got a lot of questions for you, but I want to pivot real quick and bring Mona in. Mona has a startup called Radivision. Good to see you, Mona.
Thank you for having me.
I think you are, well, no, I can't say that because we've had people from Saudi Arabia here, but locally you are the person who holds the longest car travel getting here, coming in from Auburn. But tell us a little bit about Radivision and what's the insights about your business?
Yeah, so Radivision is my 4th startup, and we are the streaming and community platform for the startup world. So we want to create a global community for all startups, and it's really the major economic paradigm today. And maybe I can get some tips from our other guests on how to create a, billion person community globally, because startups are that huge. So our belief is that everyone should be able to understand and participate in and prosper in the startup economy is the greatest way to grow wealth in the world today. And if you're not able to invest in private startups, you are being left behind. And our goal is to fix these things by connecting people together, leveraging the community and leveraging media. So we're really replacing what used to be done by person-to-person stockbrokers and small banks. All those disappeared 25 years ago, and the world changed 25 years ago. And we're doing this leveraging streaming technology, social media technology, and AI as well to help qualify and match people in the right places, give them the right information, and connect them to the right investors, advisors, fund managers, and all
I love
that
it. So,
good stuff.
Lisa, we've got a house full of connectors and community builders. I want you to help me out thinking, where do we dive in with this? Because I want to be careful because these are my rabbit holes when it comes to communication, connections, collaborations. Where is kind of the stepping off point from your perspective, Lisa, with talking with these highly important in my world, interesting people?
I mean, I'm really interested. Samara, I'd love to start with you. You actually have an HR background, working in executive recruitment and then at a large transportation company in-house for a number of years, and would attend these HR conferences. And I would come back so inspired just listening, and learning from all these global companies. And I know Transform HR is incredibly successful and has been for a number of years, continues to grow. I'd love to just learn how did this come about, and what do you think are those kind of keys to success in terms of how Transform was really built?
Such good questions. So I actually do not have an HR background, and I don't have an events background either. But as I mentioned, I discovered that I really am a connector at heart, and that's a thread that has carried with me throughout my life. I think is starting as early as I was a child, and would like to bring my different friend groups together. So I would find similarities and reasons why I thought people would enjoy each other's company. And then there would be kind of new friendships that would blossom, bringing different groups together. But I was connected to one of my co-founders in 2016, who had been in the events business, was really starting an events studio, and was launching an event in the insurance industry called InsurTech Connect. And I was quickly fascinated by kind of the world of events and really the power that that platform has to create connections and create change in an industry in a way that I think no other platforms have the ability. So I was a part of the team that launched InsurTech Connect that became quickly successful. And then we started looking at other industries where there were similar dynamics. So what we looked at was, what was the market talking about right back then when I started working on Transform. It was 2017, right? Everyone was talking about the future of work, but it was very much a future looking concept. There was increasingly more venture capital dollars kind of pouring in the industry, pouring in new startups. But I think different than InsurTech Connect, I think some of the things we didn't anticipate were the different market dynamics. So HR is a horizontal, it's not a vertical, right? Traditionally, it's a cost center. So there's a lot of really different dynamics that were at play. And there was a lot more competition, but we decided to jump in the deep end anyways. And the reason that we did was that we saw there was a gap in the current marketplace in terms of communities and events that brought together the most progressive leaders thinking about the future of work. And so as we talked to practitioners, particularly within mid-market and kind of hyper-growth startups, they told us they didn't go to any of the other HR conferences that were out there, but they were hungry to create connection, to discover new technology solutions, to have different types of conversations. And so despite there being a lot of other players in the marketplace, we saw an opportunity in that gap to create Transform.
So Lisa, that's a great question. So now I want to geek off on something Samara just said. She had no HR experience, but yet here she is driving one of the biggest conferences in HR in the U.S., if not the world. If you ask me, I went to the last one; it was absolutely phenomenal. Blew my mind. I gave Flow Rider a high five, which was really cool. But also, you had no experience in events, and so what was kind of your mindset? Saying, here's an opportunity to bring people together. I'm relating, have no experience in radio. Here I am figuring it out. But that's the common trait with entrepreneurs, great entrepreneurs, is they just find ways to connect people. They see a pain point. You saw the opportunity to bring people together, to bust them out of the silos. What were some of your early pain points within your own journey? Because 2016, that's just 8 years removed. I mean, I'm a comm major. I don't do math. How many years is that? 8 years? 7 years?
Feels like ages ago when you put a 2-year, plus pandemic in the middle, which was definitely a doozy when it comes to running an in-person events business. But so we actually didn't start Transform in 2016. I had the privilege to work with my co-founders on the launch of InsurTech Connect. So I had an opportunity to kind of learn more of the ins and outs of the event world in that context. But then as we started Transform, I think some of the challenges were specific to the industry being different and there being a lot of competition. So thinking that the same playbook that worked for ITC would work for Transform in the early days, I think was a little bit off. And so a lot of it was, spending time with the community. And the good news is, I think curiosity is probably one of my strong powers. My superpower is I'm just curious by nature. And so I love the opportunity to spend time with the community, understanding their pain points, understanding their needs, and therefore framing the opportunity. And so I think that is really where we focused in the beginning, early days, was figuring out, how do we create a place that people can see themselves? How do we lean into creating a community of communities? So I think that's one of the things, really tying back to my business development days, building partnerships with other communities that already had groups of leaders together that wanted kind of more, right? They wanted more learning, more discovery of new technology solutions. They wanted an opportunity to meet other communities. And so leaning into those communities, and what we heard from the community is really kind of how we have tailored the event. That's how we continue to build the community, is based on that feedback.
So again, when you say it was very competitive, you're saying the event space was very competitive, and then you picked a niche, we'll say HR and startup and tech, and figured that, okay, there was these silos and people were hungry to kind of bring that together, identified that. And it sounds like there's this other unique characteristic of you. Not only you were very empathetic to the need, you were very curious, but you thought bigger. You didn't think, well, I'm going to do a meetup group at the coffee shop down the street. You thought, I want a big platform. How did you kind of make that leap so early in the build of this idea?
That was the concept from the get-go, was, we're going to try to replicate the playbook that we had for ITC, which at that point was probably already a 3,000 plus person conference. It had scaled so quickly. So we were looking to really find other big hits. And so the belief was, right, if we build the community in the right way, we think about bringing together practitioners across all aspects of HR, talent, total rewards, culture, DEI, along with investors that are really funding the future of innovation and entrepreneurs. And we have the right leaders and we lean into those communities, right? We believe that we had a unique kind of positioning and differentiation vis-a-vis the other HR events out there. So and very quickly we discovered we did. I'm
hearing from a people perspective, there are those who go out and build relationships one-to-one. And you can almost like translate that B to C, like business to one. But you found other community leaders, B to B, right, who already had a community and then started stacking those that really kind of helped you accelerate this concept. So you did the IC, I'm slipping my mind.
ITC, InsurTech Connect.
InsurTech Connect. You did that for a couple years. When did the pivot go to transform and you said, okay, I'm going to create this, and boom, transform? What was that moment? Were you driving to Los Gatos or down from San Francisco? What was that moment where you said, we're going to go this way?
So I started working on Transform the end of 2017. So at that point, ITC was going into its third year of the event, and we wanted to, replicate our playbook in other industries. And I think, the more I got involved in doing research in this industry, I realized, no offense to insurance, but it didn't resonate really with my heart in the same way that thinking about teamwork and collaboration and inclusivity, right? The people in the communities kind of that we have the privilege to support are just so unique and special that very quickly I realized like this resonates with my heart more than the insurance industry. And so I started phasing out of my work on ITC, and really it was all in on Transform. And we had 2 amazing years building. It was very difficult.
What were some of those early stage difficulties?
Let's see, our first event in 2018 was like 600 people, which for a conference, not bad to start at 600. But we couldn't monetize it. So like we knew that we had a special product. The feedback from the practitioners was like, hey, this is amazing. The people here are amazing. But we gave away so many free tickets. We gave away kind of free space in our experience pavilion. And so then the key was, how do we continue to build, right, a community and a product that resonates with the buyers or the practitioners and the leaders in the space, but actually find a path to monetization in a way that doesn't make it, kind of feel oversold. And so I think that, in the early days, that was really the challenge. I mean, it was very much bootstrapped, trying to find traction to monetization, both in terms of selling tickets for the conference as well as sponsorships. And so, it was a slog, right? Like it didn't happen overnight. We grew every year. So, 2019 was an amazing event. We are going into 2020 with so much momentum, and then we had to cancel the event 2 weeks before. So the event was scheduled the week that Vegas shut down. And then we had 2 years without a conference. And to be honest, I mean, as much as, the pandemic threw conversations about the future of work into the spotlight, right? All executives were talking about the future of work, remote work, hybrid, right? How do you drive productivity in a remote setting? It was hard. Like, I wasn't sure that we were going to survive, if we have another event. And thankfully we weathered the storm and we finally came back in 22. And it was amazing, right? And certainly the tides had turned, right, related to the amount of venture capital that was pouring into the space, right? The amount that these conversations were in the spotlight, not just with HR leaders, but with all executives. And so now 5 years, we have 5 years of the in-person event under our belt. We had close to 3,000 executives this year from over 30 countries globally. We now have a community platform and awards program. So we're doing so much more. And I think that's really because the community gave us permission to extend the brand and really engage and support them year round, meeting them where they are.
That's perfect. So I got a question I have to ask you. So the pandemic hit, and initially this looks like a complete disaster. I mean, it could have just wiped you out.
Yep.
But you continued the conversation. Tell me what those, because a lot of entrepreneurs, startups are going to hit these moments where, what do I do now? But you kept conversations going. What was kind of your mindset?
But in a very limited way. So to be honest, we didn't do a ton. I think we did just enough during those 2 years to keep the brand. But
you didn't throw in the towel.
No, we didn't throw the towel in. So we did everything possible to preserve sponsor commitments and to get people to roll over their tickets, right, for the event that we canceled. We didn't flip it to a virtual conference. So we actually canceled and didn't do anything. And then we started to strategically do some virtual summits over the 2 years. So we didn't kind of flip to virtual webinars every month, but we did just enough to keep the brand alive and to continue to engage with the community. And then thankfully, it finally became the right time to go back.
And it was in 2022, you had your first one back. Yep. Was that in Vegas as well?
It was. It's always been in Vegas. Probably will always be in Vegas.
Such a great venue.
And it was at the Cosmopolitan, and it was amazing. I mean, the pure look of joy on attendees' faces. Like, this was the first event, really, I think, in the industry that was back, because we're in the spring, early in the spring in March. And I just will always remember, like, how excited people were to see each other, right? Just the true joy to reconnect with people that they knew in the community, to meet others. It was an amazing event.
Yeah, and that's when people were really like wanting to come out. And it had to be nerve-wracking for you. Are they going to shut down again? Because that was right at that time of, everything changing and pivoting back and forth. But it happened. Yep. You had a great turnout. You had another one, this is 22 and 23, and then this one in 24. And again, now we're gearing up for 2025, and things, as you were saying earlier, are expanding. Yep. What are some of the new looks to transform and building this community that you have implemented since the last event?
Well, if we think back post-pandemic, so we started out called HR Transform, right? It was very much an HR conference, and we rebranded in 22 to drop the HR from the name, so just Transform. And the reason that we did that was we've always been believers that we want to bring together executives who are thinking about people-first strategy within business, not just HR leaders, right? CIOs, CTOs, CEOs, chief marketing officers, right? Chief comms officers, right? This is a community and a place for all executives who care about people-first strategy. And so that, I think, has allowed us to continue to evolve as we think about the event in terms of the programming and thinking about the audience development. So we're, increasingly looking at how do we bring in more conversations about healthcare innovation, right? Women's health is such a critical topic right now, right? People are increasingly talking about and kind of bringing it out of the shadows, conversations about menopause and perimenopause, right? These are conversations we should be having as a community, that we actually are going to be having as a special affinity group within our Transform Plus community. But these are the types of conversations I want to ensure that we can have at the event and online, right? It doesn't have to just be specifically about what you might think is HR, right? These are conversations that affect people's lives every day, whether you're in the workplace or not.
So it's really positioned.
And sorry, Brian, I just
ahead.
have to say the HR practitioners are cheering all over the world right now, or whoever's listening in. I mean, having worked in HR, it is just a constant education, right? You're just constantly trying to educate leaders so they have the, ability really to lead and with confidence in those different topics. And I just love that you made it for leaders and executives, and also thank you, I have to say as well, for creating a community. When I worked in executive search many years ago, the US, the UK, often Australia were leaders in HR tech and in more progressive HR strategies, and so to be able to access that community of experts is so incredible. I wish we had this back in my day.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm excited to continue our conversation and hear about the work you're doing to support female founders and startups there. I mean, I think that's something, right? I have the privilege, certainly within this industry, there's increasingly more female founders than I think in other industries. I remember in our InsurTech Connect days, we had, to have female founder competitions to help elevate those voices. And I think, I'm lucky that we have so many female founders in this space, but increasingly we need to find other ways to support more. So I honor the work that you do and hope we can find an opportunity to collaborate. And I'm excited to hear more from Mona about her business.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And the fact that you have brought in startups into Transform, you're getting the executives with the enterprise companies, and now you're getting SMB. What was kind of your thinking bringing those worlds together? And really where I'm going with this conversation is a few weeks ago, we had Edward Sullivan on here who wrote Leading with Heart, getting leaders to be more engaged empathetically with their teams. What are some of the biggest challenges that the leaders are facing from your perspective that Transform is really trying to meet?
Wow, that's a long list. I
I
don't know if we have
down.
time for that today. I guess some of the things I would think about at the top are, right, just attracting and retaining the best possible talent, right, which touches a lot of areas. So, building an employer brand, right, that resonates and attracts the right talent, being able to acquire and, bring that talent on the team, to onboard them in the most effective ways, to create an inclusive culture where they feel belonging, right? And they want to stick around, to ultimately drive high performance and productivity, to drive business results. I mean, I think leaders today increasingly are thinking about how do they bring on the right talent? How do they retain them? How do they create an environment of productivity in this world of hybrid work? A lot of leaders are talking about, right, how, what is the right answer? And I don't think there is one, but how many days do you go back into the office? Do you go back into an office? How do you create purposeful in-person connections with your team to drive performance and make sure the business is working well? It's challenging. I mean, I feel for leaders in this day and age in terms of thinking about all of the intricacies of the business, right? How much also the world events around us affect people, right? And it's hard to leave that at the door. So how do you, what policies and, what's your approach in terms of creating an environment to facilitate those conversations, or saying that this is not a place for those conversations? Yeah. So that wasn't a very concise answer, but there's so many things I think that leaders are thinking about right now.
I like it. And we have a couple of leaders here. We're going to pivot to Damian. You and Damian are friends, and I saw him shaking his head when we were talking about 2022. Did you go to the 2022?
Yeah, I think yep, I was there.
So how did you two meet?
Actually, 11 years ago,
2011, I think.
Yeah.
So even more than that.
Yeah. We were actually, both were in real estate at the time, and I left from Florida, moved out here, going to do another startup. And then we met because a colleague of ours said, hey, you guys can do a startup. Meet with Samara. She was thinking about doing a startup, and we got together and we discussed startup ideas, but we never did a startup. We just became friends.
Well, great.
We tried for a while. We're like, okay, coffee meetings to discuss ideas. We had a lot of ideas, but then it never.
And then they hatch at the most, unexpected time. And so, Damian, you have a new startup. It's called Fynch.
Yep.
Fynch. I know you gave a little intro in the beginning, but talk about the problem or the pain point you identified in the industry, because you kind of saw this in your own work with the emails, and because it sounds like you're a community builder and people are important, and so you're constantly pouring into your customers and those around you, but it just sounds like to drain you.
Yeah, and I think I got to step back for a second, because the way I got to Giant Eagle was through a startup. Giant Eagle was a medium-sized, 470 stores, grocery stores and convenience stores. And they acquired that startup back in the day when that bomb went off and Amazon purchased Whole Foods. Mm-hmm. So it made a lot of retailers say, hey, we got to get this digital thing kind of figure it out. And so I came into Giant Eagle to help them figure out digital marketing. How do you engage customers? How do you leverage different channels beyond just sending an email or just what's in the circular of the week? And, we help them create those capabilities, everything from push to, Facebook advertising to targeting on both on-site MarTech and off-site ad tech. Got to a point where we created so much capability, we had 20 plus channels, right?
20 plus, wow.
Yeah, think about this. You go to a convenience store, you got the receipt printer that spits out those coupons for you that is targeted to you. You go to the convenience store, you go to the pump screens. There's pump screens running, anywhere from 8 seconds to 15-second ads. I mean, you're driving down, there's digital billboards, you get push message. There's Waze as you're driving through, there's little things pop up at Waze. All those things have to come together and create a strategy, right? You went from just brand advertising to performance and actually focus on targeting, and not just creating campaigns, but actually creating journeys. We see that you're churning, okay, and they say, okay, we'll start you on a different journey. You'll get this coupon, you'll get this campaign, and you walk through. But it becomes a problem because if you think about it, you have 20 plus channels, you have millions of customers, you have campaigns run across 5 different states. It became managing the capability became a full-time job, more of the job than actually creating the capability, right? Especially, and this is back when this thing was relatively new to a lot of retailers. Imagine now when retail media, where some of these retailers are running their own ad agencies in-house and helping other brands target and engage their customers. So now you have external customers that are running marketing campaigns. You have internal customers that are enterprise running campaigns. Coordination became such a problem for me that, I tell you, my team grew to like a few hundred because, you had a social team. You had the performance team that did everything that was paid media. You had the organic team that did non-paid media. You had the in-house team that did all the in-house screens and things like that. You had to come together to actually discuss what the strategy is. There wasn't something you can go and say, what is the strategy we're running in this state? You couldn't do that. You had to get all these folks together. And all the emails were flying around. I mean, you had to spend so much time in email saying, okay, give me the social strategy for this. Give me the paid social campaign for this. What's happening in direct mail? And then compile all that information together from different email from different departments. So we got to a point where I said, man, this got to be a better way, right?
And this was all, before we pivot, this was all underneath you. You were overseeing all of this. I'm just fascinated how you kind of kept that all together. 20 channels. I mean, I complained about posting on LinkedIn today, and to think that you're managing all of this and all these people, bringing it together. I don't know how you had any time to sleep. And so this was the pain point.
Yeah, but
I don't know if he slept much during those days.
I know. I mean, this is also pre-pandemic. When pandemic hit, it got even worse. But I think one of the things you got to realize too, it's not just one person. No, like I'm not the social guy, right? I don't know anything about direct mail, from that standpoint and distribution. You have to bring all these folks together. When we discussed marketing strategy, it was a meeting with like 20 plus people, different heads of different departments saying, okay, this is what we're doing. Okay, how does that work out with what they're doing? How much allocation of the budget do you have in comparison to them? And then it's like, well, I need more budget for this. And then you have to be the gatekeeper to say, okay, well, you can get 15% of the budget, but okay, you have to give up 5% of what you got because this person needs this. And no, we can't just do organic channels or what's on, you have your own in-house ads too. Now, if you go to a lot of retail sites, you have ads that are running. I mean, you go to Target, scroll down to the bottom, right? You'll see they have the in-house ads and they have the external ads. You have to coordinate who's where, when, what time, for how long, and for it to, for all those things. So it's a lot of meetings, again, and a lot of emails. So from my standpoint, it was weekends trying to look through all the different strategy docs and trying to say, okay, what are the gaps? What's missing? because everything has to also be performance based. Because you don't spend hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars and realize, okay, this happened, or you're running ads in the wrong market. So a lot of my time is looking for those anomalies. Okay, are we running brand terms in a market where we shouldn't be running brand terms? Should we be running brand terms? The organic team says we're ranked number 1 for all our brand terms, so we should
and when
cut
you say
back.
brand terms for our audience, and honestly for me too, what do you mean by brand terms?
Brand terms typically your own company or product. And from organics, when you do a Google search or any kind of search, if you rank number 1 or number 2, typically you don't have to buy those brand terms because you already command the top spot. Right.
Got it.
And it's very few times that you'll see competitors try and take your brand terms. And so there's a lot of times where you find optimization of, okay, my goal was to reduce the budget, get the same performance at a much more reduced budget. And so a lot of times looking for those anomalies. Other things too is like, it's not who to target. Sometimes the biggest win is who not to target. Okay. If you're buying milk every week consistently, I shouldn't be targeting you for a milk campaign. Right, your behavior suggests that you're going to do this whether you have a coupon or don't have a coupon. I'd rather make sure that gets allocated to someone that will actually try something different. Our partners are paying us to engage those type of customers as well. But again, at the end of the day, the problem for me was all that coordination, managing all that capability. And as more retailers become more digitally engaged or more digitally accessible with their targeting and their marketing, it becomes a bigger and bigger problem. Think about small business now. Small business, you can't just, hey, I'm going to pop up and Yelp. I mean, that doesn't work anymore. You have to just engage socially. Now you have TikTok, you have Facebook, you have all these different things. Then you have paid media. And how do you make sure you're coordinating all of that together? And a lot of companies try to externalize their marketing, but that's kind of a flawed way of doing it because that external company is never going to be 100% focused on you.
I got a question for you, and maybe I zoned out because I'm over here doing my thing. But we're going to take a break in just a minute. Mm-hmm. But Damian, can you just connect the dots? Because I hear your area of expertise, I hear your history and your experience, but you've got a startup that does what? Can you give me your pitch? Can I connect those dots, please?
Yeah. So my startup takes all that management capability and say, okay, how do I get that out of email? How do I get an intelligent agent to help me figure out what's happening right now? I want to communicate with an agent that takes all that information, aggregates it, summarizes it for me, and make it more of an intelligent question and answer. And so instead of me going to 15 different meetings, getting 50 different emails, how does it aggregate all that together into one thing? So what we've created with Fynch is taking email productivity to the next level by saying, every week, instead of sending me all the different campaigns and strategies, send it to this agent. This agent is going to aggregate all those things for me. It's going to learn what my business is doing, look for the anomalies. I gave you the brand example. It knows now, it's like, anytime I see that, it's going to flag those things for me. So it's focused on the productivity from my standpoint is leveraging how I used to do marketing. And the problems I had was get me out of those emails, sorting through all these different documents. Wanted to take the social strategy, take the performance of the paid strategy, take the direct mail strategy, take the PR strategy, bring all those things together, make sense of it for me, and I can query you, the agent, saying, based on the PR strategy, should I be emphasizing this product or this service in this market? It can then come back and say, well, this is what the social team is doing with that product, that service, and this is how I can handle it. So at the end of the day, it's bringing the intelligence to you and less so much managing email.
Yeah, I'm completely fascinated by this whole process. So you're taking
Brian. We're going to take a break first. I know you. Can you save that question for me?
Sure, we can save the question.
I know you're 100 miles an hour, and I know you want to keep going, but I'm going to cut you off.
All right, let's quickly go to a break. I want to thank everybody for watching or for listening to KPCR 92.9 FM in Los Gatos.
Now you're good.
All right, we're back, and we're here with Samara. We're talking with Damian, and Mona will be chiming in a minute. Damian, we were talking a little bit about the problem that you are looking to solve with your rich experience of people engagement up to this point. Continue to walk us through what you are now consolidating into this concept.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it was really now managing the process, but taking email out of it. And instead of managing email, focus on the problems and the strategic focus of the issues at hand. Offline, Mona and I were having a quick conversation, and she was kind of diving into it. And it's like, yeah, because all these different things and channels kind of rolled into one department. How are you managing it? And it's saying a lot of times it's just every week, every Friday, each department would send their highlights and lowlights, or kind of their strategy docs to me, and then I had to parse what's happening out of that. But instead of sending it to me, sending it to this intelligent agent that says, okay, I'm going to aggregate all these things, summarize it for you, as well as a flag any different activity that you should be looking for, prioritize within the strategy itself. I gave the example about the brand marketing, also the example of audience targeting. And one of the key things was audience. Every channel has specific audiences looking for or trying to target, or sometimes who not to target. And that's what I was focused on, who are the exclusion, what are the exclusion lists. The intelligent agent can take that and look for that for me and say, okay, here's an area that this channel doesn't have an exclusion list, right? Or this channel is running hot, because sometimes it's also how the ad's running, how is the budget pacing along the way. This area is pacing very hot. And for this campaign, you're only halfway through, but it's pacing 75% for this channel. Because a lot of times, I spend hours going through all these different channels and figuring out what's happening. What's happening with the budget, what's happening with the ads. In certain cases, you got to find, you look and say, hey, not only do you have the strategy, you also have the ads that you have to look at, right? So a lot of times they'll attach those ads. Okay, these are the ads we're running. This was live this week in these markets. And you have to make sure that these things make sense.
Can I chime in?
Yeah.
I'm
If you're
so
feeling
excited.
it, go for it.
Well, I was just going to say, we were talking about on the drive, right? Productivity is such a hot topic right now within organizations for leaders, right? Thinking about how do you get more from your existing team? How do you create more productivity that ultimately is going to drive the business results? And so while Damian has been talking about how this agent can be used, right, to create marketing strategy and really inform intelligence around marketing, it can also be used much more broadly to help drive productivity. I was talking about, right, survey results from the conference as an example, right? Or think about reviews of your restaurant, right? Feeding that into the agent and having it summarize, right? The intelligence and the learnings from that. And then informing even your email correspondence, right? As you engage with your community or your customers, having that intelligence inform and help create your email. So there's so many, I think, interesting applications from a productivity perspective beyond even marketing strategy, which I think Damian covered really well. So not to add to your thing.
I keep thinking about this little business angel sitting on your shoulder, chatting into your ear as a chief of staff or an analyst would, summarizing, communicating more clearly, making sense of, all the mess of your inbox. It sounds like a dream.
So we all have a big mess in our inbox.
So Samara was, saw herself utilizing this particular product. Who is your target market? Is it a solopreneur? Mona needs it.
I'm building a marketing department right now, and we have more than a dozen channels, and I have to start a TikTok channel. And
exactly.
Yeah, there's so much to do, and you're talking, and I can't wait.
So is this your ideal client?
Initially, because I came out of the marketing area. My problem was managing all of these different channels, especially as they grew. Mm-hmm. And so our initial focus was marketing departments, especially as it got digital, because you don't get the support from IT. You don't get the support from other parts of the business. And, one of the things that you learn over time, marketing is also the first place they want to go and cut, right? They want to cut spend on marketing and cut people on marketing. How do you make marketing more efficient? So we're focused initially, my initial focus with the partners is like, let's focus on market departments. How can we make them more efficient? How can we make them more knowledgeable? The business is looking for more performance-based marketing, not brand marketing.
So with this, you have a scalability. So you can come in on an early stage company, yes, A series, and then scale it with them to a more larger enterprise company. Yes. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. I mean, if you have 4 channels, it can help you. And as you continue growing that, it just learns more, because the more you engage the agent, it builds a context, a history. And it says, okay, well, we know you're running social, and you're doing it 2 social posts on Tuesdays and Thursdays and on TikTok, and then you do a Friday LinkedIn post, and you do a Facebook post on Saturday and Sunday.
So it grows with you.
Exactly.
And the earlier, the better.
Yes.
Oh, I love it. This sounds great.
Because, one of the biggest problems with AI, and everybody has AI now, is like pixie dust and everything. It's getting the context or the memory to understand what you're doing, not just the corpus of everything that's out there, because that becomes noise. How do you isolate and say, hey, this is what I'm doing now, okay? And then leveraging what I'm doing now, how would you inform me, knowing that I'm only on Facebook, LinkedIn at this moment? How would you inform me if I want to say I want to roll out a TikTok strategy? Use your broad corpus to say, okay, well, this is how other folks are using TikTok. But how is it relevant to what I'm doing with Facebook and LinkedIn today? It can then bring that information together and help you and help advise you on your TikTok strategy, because it knows your Facebook and LinkedIn strategy.
So what's next for your company in terms of developing this into a larger venture project?
We're in alpha now, and our beta launches in August. So we actually have some alpha users. Samara's one of them. And then we're opening up our beta users.
Another one right there.
Yes, beta testing in August, and continue scaling the agent itself.
Well, I'm excited to see where this goes next with you. So I definitely want to stay in touch, hear a little bit more. I want to bring Mona in at this point. You related to this. There was a pain point in terms of where you're at. Mm-hmm. But before we get to that pain point and how it relates to this particular market and growth and revenue, tell our audience a little bit more about Radivision and where you're at now.
Yeah, so Radivision is the streaming and community platform for the startup world. And like I mentioned before, we believe that everybody should be able to participate in and prosper in this market. And they used to be able to back when companies went public in 3 to 4 years. And the IPO point is where the public comes in. So everybody had agents and there was infrastructure. So 25 years ago, the capital markets infrastructure changed invisibly but very dramatically to where IPOs are now 11 to 14 years or usually never, right? And why is this important? Because these investments that are now private are only accessible by the wealthiest 10% of the population, who usually come in through their institutional representatives, and they're making 70% or higher returns than in the public markets. Forget bull markets. They're still 70 to 100, 150% more returns. So if you're investing only in the private markets and you feel like somehow you can't seem to catch up, this is why. And we, with Radivision, have provided the information and the deal flow, and with a click, the ability to directly connect to consider these investments so that you too can win. And in the process, we're also funding a lot more startups and products that are very important to get to market that help make the world better for all of us.
Nice. And so you're in the process of, again, expanding accessibility. I just learned English today, by the way. So you guys are all looking at me like, well, he's studying over his words. Okay.
You're doing a really great job, Brian.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm just flexing my messiness skill set. So where were you when you saw that this was a big need in the market? Because accessibility is still an issue, but yet you're providing that. Yeah.
So a little bit of background. I started doing IPOs. I was in strategic marketing originally, worked with an advertising agency back old school, right? And did my MBA in night school, studied entrepreneurship and finance, and then spent about 10 years doing 4 IPOs for venture-backed companies. So starting in 1991. And I was director of IR for 3, VP of Corp Dev for the 4th one, and officer of the company. And those were the golden, years for venture capital. The American economy grew like crazy. Everybody became wealthier. It was great. And then things changed invisibly at the end, and the internet bubble happened. And people don't understand why. This is actually the area that I understand. So I was brought in by the leading VC firm in 2007 to Silicon Valley and asked to help fix the IPO crisis. That was the name of the chairman of the NVCA's campaign that year. And I built the first private market platform for institutional investors. So these companies the institutional investors used to invest when companies went public at 3 to 4 years. Now it was 7, 8, 9 years in 2007 before they would IPO. So there were all these extra years where they used to invest where it was public, and now it was private. Private is very different. It's not apples to apples. It's apples, grapes, oranges, avocados, very different. So we created a network that worked for that, and it worked beautifully. Our mission was to restore IPOs and liquidity. We did that, got things revved up, 2009, you see the Silicon Valley revs up ahead of the public markets, which it never does. It's not doing that now. And we started the whole unicorn investing trend. So the first 80 companies on my platform, when we launched in March of 2009, became the first 80 unicorns. They weren't even called unicorns until 3.5 years later. But now what's happened in bringing in additional public investors, private equity investors, all these folks who didn't used to invest privately, companies have ended up staying private longer. They didn't let me finish what I was building, which is now what I'm doing with Radivision with the retail investors. So back in the 90s and 80s and 70s, when Apple and Microsoft and Amazon all went public, half of the investors were retail investors. Everybody used to participate. You see this bifurcation of wealth in the U.S., the beginning of the U.S. wealth divide really accelerating in the late 90s when the IPOs shifted. So all of a sudden, those who can invest, the top 10%, are making more and more and more wealth. Everybody else, no matter how hard you work, invest wisely, you're still falling behind. House prices are growing way above what people can afford, et cetera. We're living through this now. So for me, the moment was I was traveling internationally, actually, in between startups. So this is my 4th startup. I've had 2 prior exits. And I was traveling internationally, and the red carpet kept rolling out. Oh, Mona's, from Silicon Valley, and, Forbes highlighted her as a powerful woman in tech. And I realized I was shocked at how much entrepreneurial activity was global, trillions of dollars. I mean, here I am in the Emirates and Qatar and even in Egypt, where I was born quite a long time ago, a third world country, and it's booming. It's the fastest growing part of their economy. And yet they're desperate for information. The information's not there. Everybody has to go into it and professionally to learn anything. All the information is B2B. You learn it through accelerators. You learn it through mentors giving you information. There's tons of content being created, like this amazing radio show here. Angel associations, accelerators, but nobody has it organized in a way that it's easy to find. So the first idea was, we need a media company that can put this together. But what I realized is that at the same time, every interesting story that you can write about on a media level also has a real founding team and a real company that's there. So people are going to want to invest, because how do most consumers connect today? It's through, don't cringe, it's through Shark Tank. Right? It's a 15-year phenomenon. It doesn't really describe, we cringe in the industry because it doesn't really describe what we do. And, it's not focused on, high acceleration, high growth opportunities like we're building here. But the reality is it's very powerful. It's been 15 years, massive Shark Tank effect, millions of dollars of product sales overnight and downloads of apps. And so my goal was to create an uncringeworthy entire network of startup content for people to be able to easily get to this information, connect to it, and then we know they fall in love. We know they click with Shark Tank effect, so we activated the 3rd click, which is the ability to invest or be directly connected to consider an investment, since there's a lot of SEC regulation around it. So we're like ESPN. Instead of covering the world of sports, we cover the world of startups, and then when people are ready to place their sports bet or they're interested in investment, they can click to our version of DraftKings or Caesars, who will manage the transaction for them.
That's a great analogy, by the way. I mean, from a consumer standpoint, it sounds like something I understand and that I can get on board with.
Thank you. Consumers get this right away. It's funny because the VCs don't.
So, Mona, other than raising, what is next for Radivision?
Yeah, so we're actually going to market now, which is why, I've delved in and I'm leading marketing now. We've been making efforts, and had our social media channels for the last few years, but it's absolutely massive. We've worked on getting our brand together and our messaging over the last couple of years, but now it's really about building out the channels, understanding the results and the numbers and putting it together. We're also, we have a media company. This is a Netflix, for startups. It has some elements of, YouTube's shorts. We have our bites. You can do TikTok, shorts, reels, and now bites for startup stories. This is the new IR. And all of this, the content drives, what's going to go into the marketing also. And it's very technical. There's so many departments. So our SEO was poor, so we're building that. There's a lot of technical SEO that goes into it. I'm learning all of those aspects. I just hired a full-time marketing manager, which is great, and I hired a full-time assistant coordinator for her, and then now we're putting these pieces together, and we realized we needed to be creating more shorts out there. So that's why I'm going to create a YouTube, TikTok channel, which
I
is
love it.
yeah.
So,
How are you sorry to jump
ahead.
in.
No, go
How
ahead.
are you sourcing the startups to bring them into the
Yeah,
platform?
that's actually really easy because every startup is struggling to raise funds, especially now. So it's very easy for us. So we have partnerships that we've started. We've announced a couple in our blog page, and more are coming in. So those are pretty easy. Our first partner has 50 startups he's introducing right now. I have a backlog of about 20. Yeah. So those are easy. And then we're building partnerships with accelerators and groups and so on. And we have a few hurdles for them to pass through, like being nominated. They all need to be nominated by someone who's qualified, so we don't get fake startups. We need to build that level of security as well.
Can you get the accreditation for the investors through the platform too?
Well, the accreditation is a definition, really, so that you just have to, the SEC defines what that is. And we have in our betas targeted accredited investors, but this is also for unaccredited investors because now the SEC for the last 10 years has been approving regulations that now allow everyone to invest.
so how can people connect with you? Really quick.
Mona at Radivision.com. And you can go to Radivision.com. It's free to join. You can jump in, start enjoying some entertaining, informative content.
Including Silicon Valley Impact.
I just want to just get a spelling on that. It's Radivision, R-A-D.
Right. It's for radical visionaries. Television for radical visionaries. Radivision. Radivision.com.
Yep.
and especially for you, Brian, it is rad.
It's rad. Yeah. I was pointing out when we started the show, I'm bringing rad back. You're bringing rad back. Rad is on its way back.
Totally. It's
yeah.
a radical vision. I mean, this is what we all do. Everybody here in this room has had a radical vision.
So,
And radical people doing radical things.
I love
Seriously.
it.
Yeah,
Mona,
me too.
thank you. I look forward to listening to you pitch at the Bay Angels event, which is, well, as this airs, it'll be last week, but for you and I, it'll be this week. Damian, how can people connect with you?
Getfinch.com, FYNCH.com. So GETFYNCH.com. You can sign up for the alpha and the beta, and then we'll launch the product in a couple of weeks.
Wonderful. And the amazing Samara Jaffe, how can people learn more about you, connect with you, and learn more about Transform?
Yep. They can visit the website transform.us. And my email is samara@transform.us. So
And connect
excited
with
to
these.
Connect.
Yes, connect with these amazing people. Again, expand your communication skills, expand your marketing, expand your community. These people are the aces in the industry. Lisa, good seeing you. Brian,
you too. Great
thank you.
show. Thanks for coming on, everybody. That was fun.
All right.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody.
And that is a wrap. Thank you for listening to Silicon Valley Impact. You can join us here every Tuesday from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Make sure to follow us at Silicon Valley Impact on LinkedIn as well as Instagram. Take care.